Okay, so the taking the master status again. Now I mentioned that we have a status set, and that is the aggregation of all the statuses that you occupy and the society that you find yourself in. But out of all the master status that you may have, there are some, or there is this particular one status that you can actually relate with, that one particular status that uh you cherish so much that you actually see yourself in the light and people also see you. So that is what that particular people actually remember you and know you to be. You understand? For instance, when you see a lady, you yourself, when you tell yourself, sometimes you say that uh, I'm a lady. As a lady, I need to behave this particular way. You are a gentleman, so you need to behave like a gentleman. And so you yourself, you tell yourself that no. Sometimes the way life, the things that life will bring your way, you yourself, you're like, so this is a man. And Bema Penny. Sorry for those who don't understand. Like, so is this really me, a man? You understand? So you actually see yourself in that light as somebody who is a boy, who is a man. And that is a master status in that particular regard. So someone's master status may be different or may vary from one person to the other. So what I will consider as my master status, would differ from what other people are going to consider as their master status. You understand? And so you also see that this person, naturally the person is having a biological makeup and everything, but the person may not see himself in that particular light. Even though other people will see this person and say that this is a boy, but this particular person, to him, his master status or what he actually relates with, right, is not a boy, but a girl. But a lot of people view this person as a boy. So the master status is a particular status in your status set that is far greater, or that is of much importance than any of the other in shaping both how you see yourself and how the people around you also see you. So you need to look at yourself right now. Out of all the statuses that I'm occupying right now, which of them do I cherish so much? Sorry, so much so that it affects the way I see myself and the way other people also see me. There are some of you in this life, it doesn't matter wherever you go, people are going to call you Osofo, Osofo, Osofo. Even though you may not necessarily be a pastor, but because we've seen you do a lecture or evangelism, do some morning devotion somewhere, and because of that, because of just the act, that symbol, you are automatically given that particular status.
That's worry. Come and sit down. What is the matter that I am with? I've seen you.
Right?
No,
You're
I'm
automatically given that particular status. You understand? And that is how the master status works. So out of all your status sets, there's that particular one status that stands out so much so that it affects the way you see yourself and how other people also see you. Please, is it fine now? All right. Okay, that's fine. Okay, that's fine. That's fine. So let's continue now. So I was talking about the status symbol, right? So so a status symbol is generally an object meant to signify its owner's high social and economic. Okay, all right, Sarah, you're welcome. Okay, so a status symbol is generally an object meant to signify its owner's high social and economical standing. So a status symbol is a visible external denotation of one's social position and indicator of status. So as soon as we see that particular symbol, we automatically know that you are this particular person. You understand? As soon as we see, and those are some of the heuristics, we call it heuristic. So when you get to level 200, I think 200 or 300, and you are doing social psychology, you do what we call heuristic. There's what we call a representative heuristic that you use just some characteristics of a particular profession, and you use that to judge and know that this particular person is a nurse. So just by someone wearing a lab coat, you can say that this person is a lab technician or this person is a doctor. So that is how the status symbol also works. So as soon as we see that symbol, we can now trace that. So it is based on that every government worker, especially those who work in the security sector, they all have their uniform that they wear, and that is to make sure that there is that clear distinction between the roles and the statuses that each and every one of them occupy, so that when you see a fire service officer, you are not going to tell this person that somebody has stolen my pen, so come and help me retrieve the pen. As soon as you see the person wearing that particular attire, you know that this is not the right person I'm supposed to talk to. When you see somebody who is a teacher, you're not going to tell the person that please come and give me some injection, because the person doesn't know how to go about how to inject somebody. So based on just the symbol, just the attire the person is wearing, you can know that this person is a teacher, and as such, this person cannot help me with what I need. So that is how the status symbol works. So it's just a symbol that denotes, that shows, or that can point to you the status that a particular person is occupying. Recently, you heard in the news that there was allegedly that some robbery that was going about, that a woman, you know, would would uh, would wear a dress of a nurse and sit at the front of the car, and when the police see them, because it's a nurse that is seated, the person is dressed in the uniform of nurses. And so because the person is in that particular attire, the police, automatically think that this person is a nurse. And so they don't even check their vehicles. And these people did that day in and day out until one day, they were caught. You understand? So just by the person wearing that particular attire, having that particular symbol on, we are able to know that this particular person is occupying a particular status. But in the real sense, the person was not a nurse. And that is one disadvantage about a social symbol. It can lead to impersonation. You understand? So a social symbol can be a cloth, it can be a badge, it can be a ring, it can be a necklace, it can be, any symbol you can think of. You understand? And let's look at, we've spoken about the master status. So master status are core statuses which carry more weight in our interaction with others. So age, sex, race. So wherever you go, you are going to be considered a black man. It doesn't matter. Even if you see, even when some of the black people, when they went to America, they naturalized over there. Some way, somehow, they still added the black to the black American. So wherever that you go, that's a master status in this particular sense. People are going to see you as a black man, and people are going to see, and you will forever see yourself as a black man. So that is a master status. So for instance, a woman is a woman, whatever her achievement. So it doesn't matter, you are still a woman. It doesn't matter your professional qualifications, the degrees, the PhDs, your professional experiences, and all that, and all the riches and the wealth you've been able to amass. It doesn't change the fact that you are a woman. Same applies to a man. It doesn't matter all the things you get for yourself, all the achievements and qualifications, you are still a man. You understand? So just as Obama was labeled a black American president, a lecturer, most of the time, if you say a female lecturer, we don't say lecturer, female lecturer, because we try to make sure that there is that distinction that has been drawn, and that is a master status over there. When I'm talking about a nurse, we say male nurse. Basically, when we talk about a nurse, we all associate it to be a female. So when I'm talking to someone, I just say nurse, we all will know that is a female. But as soon as I want to make that distinction, I need to add a male to it in order for the person I'm communicating with to understand that I'm referring to someone who is a male. Understand? So status inconsistency. So status inconsistency occurs when a person has different social positions that do not match in terms of status or prestige. Right. So just imagine your lecturer, you are just, going through the market and you saw the lecturer, carrying ice cream said, and then, yes, ice cream can come and buy. Would you buy? How are you going to see that? Like, you'll be surprised because in one particular sense, your lecturer is someone who has a prestigious position, but in another life, you will see that the person is occupying the status of a layman or an average person in the society. So that is status inconsistency. So for instance, a judge smoking or drinking at a public place. So is this a judge? In the same way, those of us who are Christians, Muslims, and all that, as soon as you do something, right now you tell that, so is this person a Christian? That means that in one aspect, you are behaving as a Christian. In another aspect, you are doing something that is inconsistent with the status that you find yourself in. That is status inconsistency. So out of all your status sets, the statuses that you occupy, you would see that there are some of them you are going to be ranked high, some of them you are going to be ranked low. And that is what brings about that status inconsistencies you are talking about. So a celebrity buying watch in public. There are some of us that we are going to be so surprised if you see Black Sharif or if you see Apostle Joshua Selman at standing in the queue to buy Davis Gobe. We'll be so surprised. Hey, what is Apostle Joshua Selman doing over here? We'll be so surprised because he's seen in another space as a prominent man of God, but here he is buying Wachi. You understand? So that is the status inconsistencies. Right. So status inconsistent refers to people who rank higher on one dimension of social class and lower on the others. So the idea of social class, when you are studying conflict theory, that is the theoretical perspective, you will learn more about conflict, the classes of society, that's the bourgeoisie and the proletariat, those who own the means to production and those who sell their labor for a wage. So you are going to learn all those stuff, but because this is just an introductory to the course. So with time, you will get a brief and a holistic view of everything. Now let's look at social roles. Right. Now the social roles are the things that are expected of you, the functions expected of you to perform as a social status occupant. Because you occupy a particular status, there are some specific roles that are expected of you to occupy or to perform. That is what we call the social roles. Right? So social role consists of the norms associated with a particular status, norms that specify the behavior acquired of the status occupant. So you can't be, excuse me, sorry. You can't be a pastor and be seen, pubbing and clubbing, with 99 others, you are enjoying life, you have this, smoke, you weed, just smoking and enjoying life. No, because that is not what the dictates of the status that you occupy. That is not what is expected of you. So the roles are status specific. So the status that you occupy, then the role you are going to perform. So as a student, it's expected of you to study. You understand? Yes, so and as someone's, boyfriend or girlfriend, it is expected of you to provide some sort of, social, emotional, comfort to your partner, to be there for the person, in good times and bad times. It's expected of you because of the status that you're occupying. So it comes with a role. You understand? So that is the social rules. So just as we have a status set, you also have a rule set. No, if you have a status set, it means that technically you have a rule set. So a rule set is all the rules that you are expected to perform based on the statuses that you occupy. Right? So there are cultural responsibilities or duties, rights, and obligations you occupy, your obligations. So you occupy a status and play a role. So the status set, you are talking about the aggregation of all the roles that you perform, you know, as a status occupant. So that is a role set. So a role set is a collection of different roles, behaviors, and expectations attached to a single status. So when you take a particular status, you are you as a daughter. What is expected of you as a daughter? Maybe in your family, you're supposed to do the chores. You're supposed to make sure that your younger siblings, they've bathed, they've done this. You're supposed to make sure that, you fetch water. You're supposed to make sure you cook. You're supposed to make sure, you give respect to your family, your father, and what have you. And that is a rule set. So a rule set is associated with a particular status. You understand? But the status set, you are talking about all the statuses that you occupy. But with the role set, when you take one particular out of your status set, one particular status, what are the various roles that comes with that particular status? That is what we call the role set. So we have examples of role sets. So university lecturer, you're supposed to prepare lecture slides, teaching classes, advising students, conducting research, doing committee work, invigilating at an exam. You understand? So those are the roles expected of you to perform by virtue of the status that you're occupying. You can also look at role conflicts. And you're supposed to perform different roles. But here is a situation that the roles that you're supposed to perform, there is some level of conflict. And this normally leads to what we call a dilemma. Right? It leads to a dilemma. Because there's a role conflict. You may not know what to do. Which of them should I do? Which of them shouldn't I do? And there are a lot of people, just to help you understand, people in this particular regard, for instance, you are going to work, you know that, and you had an emergency that something is happening at home, your attention is needed. But you're supposed to report to work by 8, and the time you had the call is about 7:59. If you go back, you are going to be late. What are you going to do? That is a role conflict. But you're supposed to perform your role as let's say as a family member, make sure that your family is welcome. You're also supposed to perform your role as a worker. But here's the situation: there's a conflict between the expectations of the various roles you are supposed to perform. What are you supposed to do? In this particular sense, there are two categories of people that will determine, that is based on the worldview, the socialization that you have, that will determine the kind of role that you are going to consider over the other. So we have those people that are shaped by the idea of a consequential view of ethics and the non-consequential view of ethics. So those with the consequential view of ethics, what is good or what is right to do, right, is dependent on the fact that it is going to yield some good results at the end of the day. So you have to rank which of them, when I take, will be more profitable, whether to myself or whether to others. That's the consequential. You understand? So in this particular, something is happening, there's a matter of life and death. You know that me not attending to what is happening in the house is going to be the damage is going to be so massive that I may not be able to recover from. So automatically you forget about the work you're going and go and attend to the family matter. And that is someone that is being shaped by the consequential view of ethics. But the non-consequential view of ethics, this person is saying that what is good or what is right is not dependent on the outcome. What is good or what is right is always what is right. So in this particular sense, what am I supposed to do? It is time for work. So I have to go to work and forget about what is happening in the house. I don't care what the outcome is. This is the right thing to do. For instance, you've done an audit and this person you audited is your friend, and you've seen that there is a fraud that your friend is in. As an auditor, are you going to report your friend, or you are not going to report your friend? That dilemma is there. That is a role conflict. Are you going to let your duty as a friend overshadow your duty as a professional? Role conflict. So there's some level of conflict between the expectations stemming from your role set. So the various roles that you're occupying, they have their own expectation roles that you're supposed to perform. And so a situation where there's a conflict between the two, any of the roles, any of the statuses that you occupy, then it leads to what we call the role conflict. Is that clear? I know that I've explained too much, but it's okay. So role strain. This is a situation in which an individual finds the expectation of a single role incompatible. So in this particular sense, it's not conflicting, but or it's not necessarily difficult. The role is not difficult, but you don't have passion for that particular thing. You are not compatible with that particular thing. And that is what we call a role strain. There's a strain on you from that particular role that you are performing. As soon as you come to work, Charlie, you are angry. Nobody has done anything to you, but just by virtue of the role that you are performing, you are angry. There are some of us just by virtue of the course that we are reading, we've seen the course as a burden and we tend not to perform better. Meanwhile, we could have done better if we had taken the course seriously. You understand? So that is a role strain. So uh for instance, a priest is supposed to be gentle and at the same time strict. But a priest, in his performance of his role as an administrator of a parish, may be incompatible with the gentleness expected of him to deal with a staff who is always late to work. You understand? So that is how it is. So it's a situation in which an individual finds the expectation of a single status incompatible, so that they have difficulty performing it. So there are some, we spoke about the rule set, the expectations of a particular status, one particular status that you have. So let's look at the issues of the lecture like this. There are some lecturers that no matter what, they may not be able to advise you as a student. You understand? No matter what, they may not be able to advise you. They can teach all right, but what is expected of them to advise, they will not advise you because they find it stressful. It's not needed. It's not what I'm supposed to do. It's not, no, no. So they will not even do it. That is what we call a role strain. You understand? So that's so somebody can decide not to become a lecturer because of the plenty markings, the talking itself. When you come to class, you have to be talking, even though the person has a passion to teach. But just the fact that when it comes, students will be misbehaving, you have to put them in order and order. I can push the person off, and the person will find it difficulty performing. So the person is incompatible with that particular this one. So you are not able to cope with all the expectations that comes with that particular role, and as a result, there is a strain on you. That is what we call a role strain. So role conflict and role strain. So role conflict refers to conflict among roles corresponding to two or more different statuses. That's role conflict. But role strain refers to incompatibility among roles corresponding to a single status. So role conflict, conflict. This is a conflict. So conflict is mostly between two entities, two people. So role conflict, a conflict between two different roles based on two different statuses that you are occupying. But a strain is for a single status, but a role conflict is two different status, the expectation conflicting with each other. But the role strain is the incompatibility among the roles corresponding to a single status. Yes, you can do one better, but when it comes to the other, end up underperforming. That is what we call a role strain. So I've explained that. So let's move on. Role exits. Now, role exit is when you exit a particular role. So it's a process of leaving a particular role that was central to a person's identity. So, for instance, when you complete your school, you write your final exam. That is a role exit. You are no more a student of the University of Ghana. That is a role exit. As it stands now, when you are filling any form, we ask you of your occupation. What you write over there is student. So it means that the student is central, right, to your identity as a person. You are a student. Oh, me, I'm not working. I'm a student. So it's central. It's what you identify. You identify to. You understand? And so the moment you graduate, you have exited a particular role, and you are now entering a particular role. And socialization need to take place from the inception. So just as when you entered the role or the status of a student, you were taken through orientation, that is socialization. In the same vein, when you graduate, the next thing is to become a national service personnel. So you will see that sometimes the NSA, the National Service Authority, organize a sensitization meeting, to explain to you how what is expected of you, to socialize you on what is expected of you as a national service personnel. So a role exit in one particular role, you know, uh, ushers you into another role, and you need to begin socialization from there. So there are a lot of people who have retired from their works. They are 60 now, that they are finding it difficult to cope with the age of, or the time of, or the reality of being an adult. The fact that they used to party here and there, but now they have to be indoors and be calling, if they need to do anything, they need to call their grandchildren to come and do for them, the old age. So they are finding it difficult coping with the idea of old age. You understand? So when you retire, for instance, when you work at the age of 60, you retire, you have exited a particular role, and now you are entering a different role as somebody who is retired. You understand? And let's look at role captivity. So role captivity refers to the situation in which people are unwilling incumbent of social role. So the distinguished characteristic of role captivity is not whether the role is difficult or stressful, but the role is unwanted. So for instance, now let's try to juxtapose this against the role strain. You see, with the role strain, it's not as if sorry, it's not as if is unwanted, but it's difficult for you to do. So that is a role strain. It's difficult when it comes to invigilating. You as a lecturer, it's difficult for you to invigilate because of, you are very an altruistic person, and so you can't bear it when people are struggling to write exams. So you may end up letting them cheat and all that. So because of that, you are not going to do it. So it's difficult for you to invigilate as a lecturer. That is a role strain. But a role captivity, you don't want it at all. You don't want that particular role at all. So there are some of you, or there are some of us that we don't want to go through, we don't want to have the degree, we just want to go and start our own business. But you are being forced to come and read this particular course. Other than that, you are going to be sacked from the house. You understand? So that is role captivity. You are a captive to that particular role. You don't want it, but you find yourself in it. You understand? But role strain, you want that particular thing, you want that particular status, but you are not able to cope with all the expectations that come with that particular status. Not necessarily you don't want it, but a portion of all the expectation is difficult for you to cope with. That is a role strain, role captivity. You don't want that particular role at all. Role conflict. There is a conflict between the expectations of two different roles stemming from two different statuses. That is a distinction now. Is it clear? Is it clear now? Okay. So this brings us to the end of our discussion. Yeah, Del, you can let me see. So you can actually unmute. Hello, Del. Oh, but I've asked you to unmute, oh, so I don't know why. Oh, Del, are you able to unmute now? Try unmuting. Okay, yeah, you have been able to unmute now, so you
Oh.
can talk now.
Service, I want to ask that what are the consequences of rural captivity?
Okay. All right. So is there anybody to help? What are the consequences of a role captivity? That in a particular role and you don't want it, what happens? So one thing, especially, it depends on where you are taking it from. So uh, it can lead to underperformance, or it can also lead to the person becoming a rebel in the society. Because at the end of the day, the person is doing what the person doesn't like. So you would see that this person will tend to become a rebel. So you will see this person will rebel against you and all that. But because the person don't like that particular role that the person is playing. And there are a lot of misdemeanors going about because some people they are being asked to do what they don't want to do. You understand? They are
Mm.
being asked to do what they don't want to do. So it can cause, it can lead to social disorder. You understand? It
But
can lead
then
to,
you can also see that some rules supersedes other rules because if I'm a father, I cannot decide not to take care of my kids.
you say if you're a father, you cannot decide to take it. Oh, there are a lot of people do. You see, that is what I was telling you that when in every role there is role expectation and role performance. So as a father, it's expected of you not to. It's
Are you
expected of
saying
you to
that it's
take care.
not expected of me as a lecturer not to advise my students?
That's what I'm saying. That it's expected of you as a lecturer to advise your students. But what is the role performance? Are you actually advising your students? And now, when we've seen that yes, expected of you to advise your students, you are not advising the student. What is causing that? Is it a role strain or is it role captivity? Is it because you don't want the role that you are performing as a lecturer as a whole, or is just a particular aspect of it that is becoming difficult for you? And that is, I don't know whether you get what I'm trying to say. So the role strain and the role captivity comes in to explain some of the nuances or some of the differences between the role expectation and the role performance.
But the definition isn't clear enough. You see, they just stated it
The
that when
definition
people
of,
are unwilling, you
Mhm.
see, you can't just be there and you are unwilling not to take care of your kids.
Okay, so okay, I get it, I get it, I get it. So it's
Uh-huh.
unwanted. That is this one. It's unwanted. You don't want that particular role in the first place. So why are you giving it to me to play?
Okay.
You
Thank you,
understand?
sir.
Yeah. Is it okay. So who else? Okay, so since we are done, nobody asks any question. This brings us to the end of week 6. So hopefully tomorrow, God willing, we should be able to begin from week 7. Then we'll have our last meeting on on Saturday, probably for week 8. Then hopefully next week we should be able to reach like week 10 or 11, then we'll know that yes, we are reaching somewhere. So let me stop the recording, and I have like 4 minutes more.